Well, about a month ago, we ranked the top 25 running backs, and now we're back. With fantasy playoffs looming, we're going to adjust the ranks a little bit. I am back again with my co-host Jagger May and special guest sick Dave Kluge joining us. Oh, thanks, Dave. Yeah, you go. Keep sniffling. How's the mucus over there? How you doing, bud?
Dude, it's bad. Anyone watching on YouTube right now can see that I only have one headphone in today. I had the sickness that shall not be named, and then it turned into a sinus infection, which turned into a double ear infection, and I could just feel mucus sloshing around in my head. It's bad, dude. It's bad. But we're gonna power through today and talk about some running backs. I couldn't not come on this show because I knew you were gonna be slanderous to Breece Hall, and I couldn't allow it to happen, so I had to be here today.
Okay, that's a little teaser for later on. Not slanderous. I think very logical in the way we're looking at this. Yeah, sip your tea, Dave. Let's get into our first grouping here. These are the running backs that miss the cut. They are in tier 5. They're just outside the top 25. At number 26, we've got James Conner. At 27, James Cook. 28, Alexander Mattison. 29, Gus Edwards. And number 30, Jerome Ford. Jagger, I'm going to throw this to you first since you're now the new co-host. Out of these players that you see here, who is most likely to outperform their current ranking? Oh, Jagger. Major misstep as the new co-host. Muted
know.
already
I
on your
know.
first point, dude. Honestly,
Yeah.
Dave, you're back in. You're back in, Jagger. You go to the bench.
Here
Fumbled
we
the
are.
ball.
All right,
First
looking
play.
forward to Thursday.
James Cook is who I was going to say. I know it sounds crazy that he's even down here, but we've been disappointed by him every week. And then they bring in Leonard Fournette, and Leonard Fournette's another guy that kind of missed this cut, but he matters. And me and Alfredo just talked about him yesterday. If you're keeping track of the Football Guys cinematic universe, that like James Cook has only gotten 2 touchdowns this year, and now they got a guy who only thing he's really good at is getting touchdowns and absorbing a couple of passes. So it like if anyone can do it, it's him. After that, it's Gus Edwards for the same reasons for Leonard Fournette, if that makes sense. Gus Edwards is falling into the end zone, man. He's like that the old Mike Tolbert. You know, Mike Tolbert would get you like 2 carries for two tutties, and he's in your flex, and you're excited. So,
Dave, where are you leaning here?
You know, I wanted to say James Conner. That was what my gut immediately went with because, I mean, he was averaging almost 14 points per game before his injury. Was giving us solid high-end RB2 production. But I want to pivot. Talk about Alexander Mattison a little bit, a guy that I really have not liked all that much this year. But this Cam Akers Achilles injury is going to open up an opportunity for Alexander Mattison. And now they're going to be throwing less. This team was pacing for almost 700 pass attempts with Kirk Cousins. Josh Dobbs can get it done, but they're not going to be throwing the ball nearly as much with Josh Dobbs as they would have with Kirk Cousins. The team has already showed us that they do not like Ty Chandler. I don't think that he is going to be seeing any significant workload here. So I think Alexander Mattison is a guy that, might not be pretty. He's not going to be the most effective guy out there, but he's probably going to see 18 to 20 touches per game. So it's going to be ugly, but I think Alexander Mattison is a guy that can kind of give you a top 15, top 20 production from here on out.
Sick Dave, just full of growth out here, vouching for Alexander Mattison. I'm assuming here, after all the conversation, guys, every running back was mentioned except Jerome Ford. So I guess we kind of just see Jerome Ford as a guy that's probably going to stay outside that top 25 no matter what.
Yeah, most likely. And I like Jerome Ford, but he's just got such a weird role right now where they, I kind of joked around that he's like the Mariano Rivera of this team. Like they give Kareem Hunt the early touches and then they give Jerome Ford the late touches. I'd like to see a bigger workload for Jerome Ford, but Pierre Strong is good. They like what they've got in Kareem Hunt. So we're just not going to see a big enough workload, I think, for Jerome Ford to really outproduce where we've got him.
Well, if you're enjoying this video so far, please be sure to give this video a like. Make sure that you subscribe to the Football Guys channel because we're bringing you this show and all the other shows in the Football Guys cinematic universe, as Jagger so eloquently put it. We've got the Audible, we've got the Football Guys Dynasty show, the DFS show, the Sunday morning live start sit every single week. And if you have a question about your running backs that are on your roster, your week 10 lineups, or maybe some trades you want to make for the fantasy football playoffs, drop those questions in the comments below. Guys, we're going to take a look here at tier number 1. These are the top running backs. The guys, I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about here, but at number 1, we've got Christian McCaffrey, who was previously ranked running back 1. Nothing changed there. Austin Ekeler, number 2. He was previously ranked as running back 3. And then Travis Etienne, who is now at running back 3. He was previously ranked at running back 4. Out of these 3 guys, is there anyone that you think might actually fall out of tier 1? Jagger, let's start with you.
Easily Travis Etienne. It's because we've been disappointed by the Jaguars offense time and time again. Travis Etienne is the only one who's actually kind of performed at their ADP, with the exception of Christian Kirk, who's a crowd favorite around here. But to me, if you want to pick anyone who won't be in the red zone that often, it's got to be Travis Etienne. We saw Austin Ekeler come in and immediately become Austin Ekeler right away. He had some drops, but again, the fact that he's getting the targets and eating them the way that he is super promising. And there's no one here that's going to slander CMC. That's not even, we're not going to do that. So
yeah, well, I'm not even going to waste podcast time with talking about Christian McCaffrey. He's running back 1. Just, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Dave, let's move to tier number 2 here. There's not much to talk about on those first 3 guys, but tier 2, this is where things get, honestly, messy for everyone. I think outside of the top 2 running backs, there's just, you can make arguments for any of these guys, and I'm sure we will very civilly. At number 4, we've got Jonathan Taylor, who was previously at running back 8. At 5, Breece Hall. He was previously running back 7. At 6, Josh Jacobs. He was previously running back 11, so a nice bump up for him. At number 7, we've got Alvin Kamara, who was previously running back 13. At 8, Derrick Henry, who was previously at running back 14, and DeAndre Swift at 9, who was previously at running back 12. So we see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys, 6 guys, all 6 of these in tier 2 made big jumps up. This is going to be really interesting to see. I do think that if there's a running back that can hop into that elite tier with Christian McCaffrey and Austin Ekeler, I think it's Jonathan Taylor. Dave, do you see Jonathan Taylor as the guy that could actually jump in and be a top 3 running back rest of the season?
Yeah, I think Jonathan Taylor and Breece Hall both kind of have the same thing going for them. They're workhorses behind pretty good offensive lines. They both have quarterback troubles. They're both on offenses that like to lean on the run. And now we're finally seeing it with Jonathan Taylor. His snaps have gone up every single week since he has returned from injury. I had 74% snap share last week. Zach Moss isn't going to completely disappear. He's been a good running back. He's going to continue getting touches, but I think what we saw last week is going to kind of be the norm going forward, where Jonathan Taylor saw 23 touches. That's what we saw through his first few years in the league as well. So we know Jonathan Taylor has it inside his range of outcomes to be the overall RB1. Obviously a slow start this year with the contract holdout and the injury and the emergence of Zach Moss, but he could really be one of those guys going forward. But Breece Hall also, the per game RB5 since his snap count was lifted. He was the RB7 per game as a rookie before tearing his ACL, one of the best prospects to come into the league in years, and has already shown that he's an elite fantasy asset. So you wouldn't have to twist my arm to say that Breece Hall or Jonathan Taylor belong to be in that tier 1.
So, okay. First of all, I do want to talk about Breece Hall a little bit here, because I know before the show we talked, this was going to be the talking point, is that once again, I'm the low man on Breece Hall, and I get it. You guys each have him as your running back 4. I have him at running back 8, which I still think is very logical. That is not a massive indictment on Breece Hall here. Like I said, running backs 3 through I don't know, guys, 8 are all pretty interchangeable, to be quite honest. Dave, I will push back a little bit on the offensive line for the Jets. They're not a good offensive line. That is a very, very bad offensive line. And even on Football Guys, offensive line rankings, they are ranked number 30 according to our website. So I'm not at all excited about the offensive line. I want to say my piece on Breece Hall, and you guys can shun me, throw tomatoes at me, light me on fire, whatever you want to do here. I'm sure the comments will be super nice, but the thing that I look at with Breece Hall that gives me the pause, right, of making him an automatic top 5 guy or top 4 guy like you guys have him, is that 41% of his fantasy production this year have come from 5 touches. 5 out of his 117 touches have accounted for 41% of his fantasy production. That doesn't make him a bad player. What it does is it makes him a boom bust guy. Yes, he can absolutely win you your weeks, but I don't know that you're always going to have that reliability. We saw last night, Zach Wilson and the offensive line are continuing to struggle. Once again, not an indictment on Breece Hall. I want to just continue to say that. I don't think Breece Hall is bad. Breece Hall has the ability to make these plays. It's just not likely that it's going to happen every single game. The rushing's been kind of spotty. 6 games under 60 yards. The receiving game has had to become his calling card, where he's averaging just over 4 receptions per game in his last 5 games. to me, that's very similar to what we're seeing with Alvin Kamara, who's been roughly the same guy, 7 receptions per game, 57 yards per game. And then you guys can, I mean, I want to talk about this. When I look at the teams for some of these other running backs like Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, I look at these offenses and I think the Colts, Saints, maybe even the Raiders and Titans are all objectively better offenses than the Jets right now, who are scoring 13 points per game over their last 3 games. So this isn't so much a talk about Breece Hall not being as good as those players. It's more of a talk about the surroundings and the circumstances for Breece Hall really suck. And if he is able to be a top 5 running back, despite all of that, I would be pretty surprised going forward.
I mean, he already is. He's a top 5 running back since the snap count was lifted. He was a top 7 running back last year. I'm just not that concerned. If you're comparing him to Alvin Kamara, like that is a damning thing. Like it's not good. Alvin Kamara
I'm not. What I'm saying is that
top 5 running back in fantasy.
Right. What I'm saying is he's comparing him to Alvin Kamara right now, where I think that Breece Hall is closer to Alvin Kamara, who we have ranked as the RB7. I think he's closer to Derrick Henry, who we have ranked as the RB8, than I do to him being up in that top tier of top 3 or top 4 running backs for you guys. We're splitting hairs here, right? I'm just I'm just saying that I think I want to walk this back a little bit, that I don't think we can just simply look at the player and be like, he's really good, because the circumstances are getting to be astronomically bad for Breece Hall.
Jagger?
I will split the difference. Yeah, I was about to say, I will split the difference here. Alfredo's concerns are correct. But I think I see the same things that Dave does when you look at Breece Hall. It's a player that you want to bet on because he's explosive. And I know all that preaching I did yesterday about you want good players and good offenses. Sometimes you just want good players. I think that right now the Jets are just enough to where I'm willing to bet on a player like Breece Hall and accept the variance every week within my lineup, because, you know, when you talk about range of outcomes, not a lot of people have the range of outcomes that Breece Hall has. So if anything, to me, he's a high variance player with a lot of upside. And for that, that's what we put him up in lineup. And a lot of that, I think of a play last night that got called back for holding, for instance, from Breece Hall, where he had a 15-yard scamper where he put someone in a blender. And like, not a lot of guys can do that. And not a lot of guys have that ability. And that's why I'm willing to put him in the top 4. So I don't know if I helped anyone there settle this debate, but
no, listen, it's not really much of a debate, guys. Like, I don't think that we're debating a whole heck of a lot. Are we? Like, I don't think we're debating a whole heck of a lot here. It's these guys, Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, even. I think they're all kind of in that same bucket. Is there, let's do something actionable here, right? Would you rather have Travis Etienne or Breece Hall rest of season?
Travis Etienne still.
Yeah, Etienne for me. And that's why I had him right
Dave, you have Travis Etienne actually as your number 2 running back ahead of Austin Ekeler. So then let's make that closer for you. Austin Ekeler or Breece Hall, Dave?
Austin Ekeler, and then Breece Hall right behind.
Okay, so it's definitively Breece Hall over guys like Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara, all them.
Yeah, for me, yeah.
And let's put it this way.
The thing is, like, we're still seeing him still ramp up from this ACL. Like, if you talk to most injury doctors, they said it would be like weeks 9 to 12 that we'd see him near 100%. He may have, jumped the gun a little bit and been getting 100% workload, by week 5, but he still is, a year removed from his ACL tear. So we're still seeing him rip off big plays. We're seeing him involved in the passing game. We're seeing all the things that we wanted to see from Breece Hall. There's still a chance that he can be even better down the stretch than he is right now.
Yep. Last night we saw a lot of volume for him. I'm looking at it right now. 20 touches for Breece Hall, 60 total yards. And this is where my worry kind of comes in, is that even with volume and even as talented as he is, and Jagger, you mentioned some of those plays get called back, I think he's just kind of stuck on the island of misfit toys, and every once in a while he is going to stand out and he's going to give you those crazy explosive plays. I think I'd rather depend on Jonathan Taylor to do it more consistently and Josh Jacobs. Jagger, I know you wanted to add one more thing.
Basically, I'm proving you right, kind of, because I'm like, dang it, Alfredo's
please talk.
Alfredo's kind of the voice of reason. It's like the difference in the even the three guys up in the first tier, I won't disrespect Christian McCaffrey like that. He's good on his own. But one huge difference between the top tier and then everyone else is quarterback play. The top three guys have quarterbacks that can at least put them in position to have high value touches. And that's why everyone else, it's more like tier two. Here's guys that have weekly RB1 in the range of outcomes. Tier one, RB1 is likely their like our range of outcomes week after week, if that makes sense.
Now, through these running backs, 4 through 8, like we mentioned, Taylor, Hall, Jacobs, Kamara, Henry, these guys are all pretty much the same for us in rankings. They're all pretty close. Breece Hall was the one where we had the biggest disagreement there. I do want to talk a little bit here about Derrick Henry. Dave, you remain lowest on Derrick Henry. You've got him at running back 10. I've got him at 6. Jagger, you've got him at 9. So I'd love to hear the talk on this, guys, because Derrick Henry has, I think, continued to get a little bit better as the weeks have gone on here. Thus, his jump from RB14 to RB8. Is Will Levis really a big positive for Derrick Henry, who's starting to see more work in the receiving game? Are we going to see that ramp up a bit more, Dave?
I tried so hard to look at the splits with and without Will Levis to make some sort of argument either way, but his workload has been pretty much the same. You saw a slight uptick in targets, but it's on a 2-game sample, so I don't want to read too much into that. But really what concerns me is that Will Levis just wasn't really putting those targets on the money. Like, the targets were there, but Will Levis was hitting his shots deep downfield and wasn't really as accurate on those little screen passes to Henry. But yeah, he's the RB8 in scoring right now. I feel like we've had this same song and dance for the last 3-4 years where Derrick Henry gets off to a slow start and we say, oh no, it's the end of Derrick Henry. And then November rolls around and he kicks it into a second gear and ends up being a league winner. We could see it this year. All the signs are pointing that he is trending down in efficiency, still ceding some work to Tajay Spears. But I think staying in Tennessee beyond the trade deadline was kind of the best case scenario for Derrick Henry. So yeah, again, we're splitting hairs. RB6, RB10, averages out to RB8, which is exactly what he is scoring right now. I don't expect to see his production go too much up or down between what we've been seeing so far this year.
So Derrick Henry, what's interesting is we talk about, you mentioned the slow start and how it kind of happens every year. But it doesn't really even seem like there was a spot here where Derrick Henry has been bad. I think he had the one game where he was running back 67. That was week 3 against Cleveland. Other than that, I think that the big storyline has been Tajay Spears getting more work than we thought. But Derrick Henry has been RB 14, 13, 7, 28, 5, 12, 6. He's been pretty good throughout these weeks here. Now, we're going to move on to our next tier of running backs, and I think we're going to dive into these guys a little bit deeper a bit. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys, we have all of our weekly rankings over at footballguys.com. They're 100% free. They're featuring myself and Dave, Joey Wright, a bunch of the great analysts that we have here over at Football Guys, and you can get that totally free. But if you want them to be custom to your league, to your scoring, and to the players that you have on your roster, it's just $3.99 a month to become a Football Guys Pro subscriber. We've got the link down in the description. You can click that and become a Football Guys Pro subscriber today. All right, guys, let's take a look at tier number 3 here, where this is awkward. David Montgomery at running back 10. So I want to jump into this one because this was the guy that was at running back 4 before for you guys. Dave, you still got him high at running back 7. Jagger, you've moved down a little bit to running back 10. I have David Montgomery at running back 15. So before we move on to any of the other players, I want to talk about David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs here. Jagger, I'll throw this to you first because you're once again the middleman, the voice of reason here. How do you see this playing out with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs rest of season? Because I'm sure David Montgomery managers are a little nervous.
I think I'm a David Montgomery guy, and I am a little bit nervous, but what makes me optimistic is I understand how this offense runs. David Montgomery is not Craig Reynolds. And one stat that I want to look at is attempts per broken tackle. The top 5 guys, surprisingly, Najee Harris, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor. Number 4 is David Montgomery. And to give you the difference between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs is 7.6, David Montgomery is 7.8 per broken tackle. He is running effectively out there, and he does something different, which he wears down the defense. Yes, he's not going to have the explosive plays, but he has a legitimate role that folks need to accept. So I did move David Montgomery down because I do think that, again, on the flip side, Jahmyr Gibbs gives them that explosive element that they need to use and give him his touches. So I got to knock him down. And then on top top of that, I moved Jahmyr Gibbs up. So this is kind of me meeting in the middle and accepting that both of these guys are going to exist and they're going to kind of cannibalize off each other just a little bit, but they're guys that you need to have in your lineup every week.
Yeah, I think I'm a little closer. I think I can concede that I should probably be closer to you. Actually, I think both Dave and I should be closer to your rankings. Dave, you've got him at running back 7 still. So my question is this: seeing what Jahmyr Gibbs has done, hearing the talk from Dan Campbell saying, like, "Listen, it's going to have to be a split. It's going to be a little bit of a committee." Is that something? Do you think that Dan Campbell is just going to kind of go back to his old ways and just, hey, David Montgomery's really good. We want to grind out games. Jahmyr Gibbs is still going to make rookie mistakes. Is that kind of where your head is for having David Montgomery still as a top 7 running back?
Yeah, and I think that's why I moved him down a few spots. I think the genie is out of the bottle with Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, he can't really contain what we
It's
saw,
it's monkeys out of the bottle, according to Jagger.
Monkey's out of the bottle, genie's out of the bottle, cat's out of the bag, whatever we want to say here. But I think Dan Campbell has shown us that he wants to lean on that early down bruiser. Jahmyr Gibbs is still going to get his work, but last year, I mean, DeAndre Swift was seeing more work on a per game basis than Jahmyr Gibbs was early in the season, and Jamal Williams was still putting up elite numbers. And I think that's what it comes down to is when they get inside the 10, when they get in that green zone, I don't think we're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs with a single touch there. So Montgomery is still going to have his touchdown dependency, and he's going to get his points there. So I did the same as Jagger compared to our last show. I moved David Montgomery down a bit. I moved Jahmyr Gibbs up a bit, but I think David Montgomery is still going to have a stranglehold on the goal line work. And that's really what's so valuable in this Detroit offense.
Now, the next guy we have here at running back 11 is Saquon Barkley, and we previously had him at running back 10. He's dropped down a little bit. I'm the high man on Saquon Barkley, which I think I can agree that I could be lower on him. It might make more sense because of the circumstances there. But I think that what we're looking at with Saquon is a lot of the same, similar circumstances that we're looking at with Breece Hall, a rough offensive line, a quarterback that's not very good, a guy who's going to get volume in the passing game, elite prospect profile, dealing with injuries, a lot of those same things. And so I do think it's reasonable given the bad running back landscape for Saquon Barkley to be a top 10 running back. Checking it out now, Andrew Thomas is back. Evan Neal's back. That offensive line has gotten better. He's been a top 16 running back in 5 of 6 games this year. So even though it hasn't been necessarily elite, it's been consistent, and he's averaging nearly 5 targets per game. This is a guy that I think, you're plugging him in there as kind of a hopeful top 12 running back each week. I think the biggest concern here, and I know you guys share this concern, is Tommy DeVito at quarterback, and that's why I kept him at 9. And I would probably, if I was going to sit here and re-rank them again, I might move Saquon a little bit lower, closer to like 11 or 12, because
is Zach Wilson any better than Tommy DeVito?
I don't think so.
Have that conversation.
I don't think so. Like that's why I'm saying that I don't know if the circumstances are all that different for the guys from like 4 to 11. It's running back kind of sucks. And I'm hoping that this is, we continue to bring some clarity to the audience here. But I do think that the Giants offense, it could go south very, very fast. I think the line got released this week for the Giants, and the implied point total for them was 11. Like it's getting bad. Dave, I actually think that you might be most accurate with Saquon Barkley. They're putting him at about running back 11. Jagger, you're the low man on Saquon Barkley. I know you were last time as well. If I'm not mistaken, I think you went up a little bit with Saquon Barkley here, right? But you're still like not in love with him.
Yeah, it's more like other people went down. Like Saquon Barkley, like when you think
that's fair. That's fair.
The production I'm going to get for him is the same, because the difference between, let's say, Breece Hall and Saquon Barkley is that the entire offense is bad besides Saquon. At least with the Jets, there's Garrett Wilson. They have a semi-solid offensive line, whereas the Giants haven't been able to keep their 2 tackles on the field. They don't particularly run an outside zone and tend to stick in the middle. So that's not, Andrew Thomas isn't doing a whole lot in the running game to begin with. So to me, it's hard to see a scenario unless they're going to feed him 15 targets a game where he could consistently have RB1 numbers. So
now a couple other guys here where I think it gets, Dave, you want to go?
Yeah. If you're listening to the show, you're probably wondering, like, everybody has gone up. We're getting to the 2 guys that have just tumbled down the rankings really soon here that allowed everybody else to move up 1 or 2 spots.
Yeah, and not just two. We're talking about three of these guys here. So we'll skip over Joe Mixon, who is running back 12 here. He's jumped up a little bit, and I think it's just more of a war of attrition. Joe Mixon is still healthy. The Bengals offense has gotten better. He's getting the volume. No one else in that backfield has come up. I think you can just leave it at that. Actually, well, let's do a little exercise here. Joe Mixon or Saquon Barkley? Who would you rather have rest of the season?
Joe Mixon.
Oh, I liked that. That was
Fight.
fun. That was fun. Okay, that's right. Fight for daddy's affection now. All right. So after that, okay, running back 13 here, we've got Tony Pollard, 14, Bijan Robinson, 15, Kenneth Walker. These three running backs have taken quite a tumble. Kenneth Walker more recently because of the injury. Zach Charbonnet starting to get a little bit more of that workload. And honestly, the Seahawks just do not look good. I think all of the Seahawks players for fantasy are starting to take a tumble, except for maybe Jackson Smith-Njigba. But listen, I don't want to bury the lead here. The guy that we're all dying to talk about is Bijan Robinson. He was previously our running back 2 in the rankings, and he's dropped all the way to running back 14. I'm taking a look at it. Dave, you are lowest on Bijan Robinson. You were highest on him before. You had him at running back 2 overall, and now you've got him at running back 17. I want you to take this moment, not a moment of silence, but a moment to air your grievances. Say all the bad things that you want to say.
I mean,
to Arthur
that's
Smith.
really what it comes down to. We know the kid is talented, but Tyler Algier keeps getting touches.
No, we don't know because he doesn't get enough
I mean,
touches. We have no idea. He's got like
we
2
do
goal
know.
line carries and the whole
Yeah,
season.
and one of
We
those
have no
goal
idea.
line touches was like a behind the back, like fake hezzy that he like ran into the end zone. Like we know this kid is
Incredible.
talented,
He's
but
so good.
Jonnu Smith is getting goal
Yeah.
line work, and Cordero Patterson is coming in inside the 10-yard line. And I don't know if you guys saw this today. Arthur Smith's talking about Bijan Robinson said his impact away from the ball can open things up. Like, that's what we're using this guy for. They drafted him 8th overall so they could get the ball in Jonnu Smith's hands so he could rip off big touchdowns. Listen, I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. I know everybody in the fantasy community is just, like, livid at Arthur Smith, and reasonably so. You know, it is just a mismanagement of riches there, but it is what it is. Can't ignore the usage. You know, when we talked about this earlier in the season, the hope was we've seen the talent, we see the targets there. Hopefully, you know, this turns into the production that we had hoped for. But now here we are at the midway point of the season. Hasn't happened, probably not going to happen. He's still, you know, a guy you want to plug in as your RB2, and he's got the weekly upside, but what a disappointment.
Arthur Smith saying that Bijan Robinson is doing great away from the ball. That's like me saying that I'm getting in great shape by not going to the gym. It's just it's awesome. That it makes those Jagger. I'm looking at right now. You are highest on Bijan Robinson. You still have a little bit of the faith there. You got him at running back 11. What makes you so optimistic about Bijan Robinson going forward? Because I do think there's a lot of people out there that are wondering, should he be a buy low as my contending team is heading towards the fantasy playoffs?
He's the guy that you're going to try to buy low on, like, in my opinion. And we all know why. You guys have been talking about how good he is for a while. And I think you can make the excuse, or I say I mean Arthur Smith can make an excuse for his passing game, whether it be a quarterback play or scheme or whatever. But that rushing game, especially when you could have won that game by just using the best guy in the red zone and don't try to continually to get cute or prove a point. To me, the front office is only going to allow that so much, especially when you use the 8 overall pick for a generational prospect. Is that me betting on narrative a little bit? Yes. But again, I'm only going to do that for one of the best running backs I've ever scouted in my life. So
Bijan Robinson, incredible. The Atlanta Falcons offense, it's been such a talking point throughout this year. It's been great for the content creators like us that we need things to talk about. The Atlanta Falcons offense has been great, but I'll cap it off with this on Bijan. I think that if you're a contender and you can somehow pay RB14 price, like what we have him here for the rankings, I think he's worth it, because I think that you can imagine he's going to give you back RB2 value each week. If you know you're going to the fantasy playoff schedule is really nice for Bijan Robinson. And taking a look here is Carolina, Indy, and Chicago in championship week. So if you think your roster can handle the ups and downs of Arthur Smith, the recently mustacheless Arthur Smith, then I think
real quick,
you make
yes
that
or no
move.
question. I'm putting you both on the spot. Is Bijan Robinson the dynasty RB1?
Yes.
I think that's hard. I think it's hard to put him as the RB1, to be honest, because of Arthur Smith. I think the only the argument you can make here is that Bijan Robinson will outlast Arthur Smith in Atlanta.
That's the hope, right? I mean,
I think we need
That's
an
ticket.
all
That's where
player
I'm at.
rebuttal here. Something where all the players get kind of like Las Vegas with the Raiders. Something where all the players and coaches kind of come together and be like, yeah, we want this guy out. That's really the only way I can see that happening next year, because Arthur Smith and the Falcons keep winning.
Let I remind you that
annoying.
It's
a terrible
Falcons
situation.
are just one game out of first place in the NFC South. That's the big problem here.
Disgusting. The NFL's a travesty right now. It's been such a weird year. All right, guys. At running back 16 here, Devon Achane, rookie running back for the Miami Dolphins. We previously had him at running back 17, and that was basically right when he went on IR. Coming off IR, there's been so much fluctuation around him. Oh, we kind of said why Ken Walker was at 15, because the Seahawks offense has been bad. Zach Charbonnet. I know. You want to say bad things about Ken Walker. I B-rabbited it. No. I went B-rabbit and I said bad things first. You can't. No,
Zach Charbonnet is outsnapped Kenneth Walker in back-to-back
30
weeks.
seconds.
All right, on to Devon Achane.
Cool. I'll say last week the Seahawks game last week was very, very weird. A massive blowout early, and just a weird game. Kenneth Walker coming off the injury before. I do think it's going to be a bit of a split, though. It will be a bit of a split, and I think it's reasonable for us to have moved Kenneth Walker down. Okay, now that Dave did his thing, running back 16 here, Devon Achane. We talked about how other players are kind of fluctuating around him. Nothing's changed for him. He's been on IR. He's coming back. I will say this, as a Dolphins fan, someone who's watching each and every one of these games, the Dolphins really miss him. And the offensive struggles are becoming evident there, that Raheem Mostert's not able to make as many plays as he was before. And Jalen Waddle keeps coming on and off the field with back injuries, knee injuries, stuff like that. And then they don't have that extra guy that they can turn to. Every time they try to get the ball to Savon Ahmed or Jeff Wilson, it's not Devon Achane. Like that's just it. Like it's not the same dude as before. So guys, this was one of the questions as I was posting the rankings earlier on Twitter today. People were saying, where's Devon Achane? Why is he not in the top 10? We've got him at 16. I think if there's a guy that could make that jump into the top 10 and make us all kind of look silly, maybe even more, top 5, it's Devon Achane.
Oh, absolutely. Right, yeah. I mean, we saw it. This guy was giving us he was like the RB2 for the little bit that he was healthy, even though he got no touches in week 1. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't want to dive too deep into it, but this is exactly what the Dolphins have been missing. They're still getting the explosive plays from Tyreek Hill, but Jalen Waddle has been banged up. Raheem Mostert, he's good. He's a good football player. I feel like we say this every single year when Raheem Mostert is healthy. We talk about how good he is, and then he inevitably gets hurt, and then we forget about it in the offseason. But he's been doing a great job, but he doesn't have that score from 70, 80 yards out in his bag of tricks like he did in his early career. Now he's picking up the 15, 20-yard gains, but those 15, 20-yard plays that Raheem Mostert is ripping off right now are house calls if Devon Achane has the ball in his hand. So absolutely missing him right now. We're hoping that he's going to be back as soon as next week. I mean, that's what it sounds like, but I just want to see him on the field, see that he's 100% before I can put him back up in the rankings. I don't think there's any opportunity to buy low on him. Anybody who rostered Achane is more than happy to just stash him on IR and wait for him to come back. But yeah, I mean, I tried trading for him in a lot of leagues and unsuccessfully, unfortunately.
Yeah, Jagger, I want to ask you kind of what Dave was talking about there at the end, which is trading for Devon Achane. Is this a guy? I think we all just kind of put him in this area just as a default because we weren't sure what to do with him, and it's hard to rank him ahead of guys that have been playing. But is this a guy that you think you'd be looking to go buy low, or before he takes off while the Dolphins are on a bye week? Is this a guy that you want to get on your roster?
I mean, honestly, it comes down to if you can, because like again, I've tried to go and get him. I've tried to even finesse everyone with like, okay, here's Derrick Henry, here's this, and no one's buying it. And it's like you said, this is us being a conscious ranker here, because like you said, this guy has RB2 overall range of outcomes for points per game at the end of the day. And like you said, this Miami offense needs him. Not only just that, it fits his skill set. So if he comes back healthy, then I'm quickly going to adjust. But again, I'm a little bit more cautious of putting guys right away up in the top spots until I see it, because we've gotten burned, I feel like, with a couple of guys this week by getting ahead of this season by getting ahead of ourselves.
Now, the last player I want to look at here in this tier is Isaiah Pacheco, running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. And previously he was at running back 21. He's moved up here to running back 17. And fellas, I've got Pacheco at 18. Jagger, you're the low man on him. You got him at 20. Dave, you are the high man on Isaiah Pacheco. You got him at running back 12. Top 12 running back for you. So the biggest split in difference here is between Jagger and Dave. So I want to make you guys fight for my affections here and the audience's affections. And let's see who has a little bit of like a better thought process here on Isaiah Pacheco. I don't think we're going to come up with anything too profound here, but Dave, what has you really loving Isaiah Pacheco as a top 12 running back? Because if that's the case, and there's other people viewing him the way that Jagger and I do, he's a massive buy low, and he could be a guy that wins.
I think the Chiefs are back, and that's really what it is. You know, we saw a few bumps early in the season where they didn't look like their old selves, and people panicked a little bit, but the Chiefs are looking good right now. Pacheco is very clearly the workhorse here. I've got him as the RB12 because I'm expecting the current trends to continue the way that they are, where Pacheco is getting involvement in the passing game that we didn't see last year. He is their preferred back at the goal line as well. Of course, the fear here that could get egg all over my face is that Jerick McKinnon does what he did last year. And in the last 5 weeks of the regular season, Jerick McKinnon steps in and he takes away all of the high value touches, which absolutely can happen. But Pacheco has shown that he is a great pass blocker, which is turning into passing down snaps, which are turning into targets. I feel like we haven't really seen the ceiling for Isaiah Pacheco yet. He's a weird runner. You know, we talk about his running mechanics all the time. He's just a goofy looking guy when he's got the ball in his hands, but he's getting the ball a lot on a good offense. There's a lot not
You're
to
doing
like.
a really bad job of selling it. You're doing a bad job of selling it by saying he's a goofy looking runner. Okay, so Jagger, you're quite a bit lower here. You're at running back 20. It almost sounds like he's a guy that you're saying that you'd be willing to sell right now because you don't think that he's going to bring back the value that some people like Dave might see. So what makes you lower on Isaiah Pacheco?
A lot of we were kind of planning how we were going to do today, and I was started looking at, guys, this is the time to use this as Football Guys strength of schedule tool. And to me, the Chiefs have a difficult strength of schedule to their running backs, and we've seen that they will full blown abandon the running game. And then Dave said it. Jerick McKinnon will come in there and he'll be the guy. On top of that, I think, and again, I'm not one of the crazy people that think that, Patrick Mahomes is overrated. I just think the Chiefs are realizing that they need to have another element in the passing game other than Kelsey. And that is also limiting a little bit of the opportunities in the offense. You could guarantee that the Chiefs would probably make it past the 50 every single snap. There would never be a 3 and out. Now we're seeing that it's not quite there. And a lot of the appeal with Pacheco, it's not that he's not good, or I'm not going to disrespect him like that, but a lot of his appeal had to do with being with such a high powered offense. And I think the little bit of that cologne is gone.
Well, guys, I think we all know that the Chiefs are going to be a good football team going forward. And so I think that when it comes to Pacheco, I think that the expectations we have set for him right now are perfectly fine. Having him as the running back 17 on this list, a mid-level RB2. So, I'll do the Jagger thing, and I'm going to split the difference here and try to be the voice of reasoning. Now, we've got 8 more running backs that we're going to talk about over in tier 4, but we're going to do that over on the audio side of this podcast. Okay. So if you're the fantasy manager that has Jahmyr Gibbs, Rachaad White, Aaron Jones, Raheem Mostert, Javonte Williams, Rhamondre Stevenson, Kyren Williams, Bijan Robinson, and you want to hear more about those players and where we have them ranked, head on over to the audio side of this podcast. You can just click the link in the description down below. For myself, for my new co-host, Jagger May, and for our special guest, Sick Dave Kluge, we'll see you on the other side.